watch today. It could be lights out quicker than you think. A shocking new report in today's Wall Street Journal highlights the security risks in the nation's power grid. If hackers knocked out just 9 key substations, our entire country could be in the dark. Here for today's very scary Money Talk, our very own Charlie Gasparino, hacker Amit, and former FBI investigator Bill Daley. Let's get right to it. Bill, what is the risk here?
Well, the risk is actually very real. It's real because from a couple of different perspectives. One, the physical infrastructure of our grid and grids is very poor. Nothing really has been done probably since the early 1990s. And we have a cyber issue as well. So we have a physical issue, we have a cyber issue, and there are a couple of really telltale signs of how weak it is. Just a little over a year ago, there was an attack out in California.
Right.
Where someone shot up a small substation, cut some power cables, lost power to a very large area for about an hour. It took them a month to repair.
Energy infrastructure is always a big target, for anyone who wants to do damage. When you look at the blackout in the Northeast in 2003, that in the end was based on a computer glitch. I mean, there was a physical problem, but then computers were the problem that didn't set off the right alerts. How vulnerable are we? Ian?
We're pretty much vulnerable. As Bill mentioned before, the issue really here is the existence of both computerized and human-controlled controls. So the mix of them really poses a huge challenge, and relying on computer data where it can be manipulated is a huge issue.
Charlie, you think this is a big threat?
Huge. I would say this. The reason why it's even bigger is just look at the response from the administration to blaming the Wall Street Journal for bringing this to our attention. I mean, who?
Right, saying that they're giving a map to terrorists or to anyone. I mean,
think about it.
We need to wake up.
This is stuff that you can probably download off your internet, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, it's not. This was good reporting, but it wasn't. This isn't Watergate, Watergate, and it was just putting a lot of stuff together, and it just shows how vulnerable we are. You mentioned 2003. I remember.
Yeah, me too. I was out covering.
I live in Stuyvesant Town in New York City, which is near Con Ed power plant. When the wind blows the wrong way, that thing goes down. So, I mean, forget about, throwing a bomb in there.
2003 really showed us. I mean, it was 45 million people were impacted. This was only in the Northeast, but it was 8 states that were impacted. At the time, we saw how vulnerable. We have these 3 grids that go across the United States in the East and the West and Texas. Since then, we have not spent the money to deal with this, right, Bill?
No, we haven't spent the money. And in addition to this current report, there was one that came out in 2007 by the National Research Council. And there, they actually, at first, that report was classified by the Department of Homeland Security, saying it was too sensitive to release. Later on, it was declassified. But basically, what they're saying is we have an exposure
and the reason why we don't spend the money is because we have an anachronistic notion of what is infrastructure. I mean, if you talk to anybody in the White House, they'll say, well, we need to build roads and bridges. Right. Yes, that is infrastructure, but our real infrastructure is the sort of technology infrastructure that connects this country, and the energy infrastructure, which we've done nothing. That's where we should be spending our money, not for making the FDR like one lane wider.
No, and it seems like, Ian, I mean, you can speak to this, that we are really vulnerable to cyber attack. I mean, I know from covering the Middle East and energy there that is where the attacks come. When you're talking about Saudi Arabia, I mean, this is what you do. You hack in and you take over energy supplies. Absolutely,
absolutely. The cyber front is really, it has a lot of impact on the general notion of power plants and power grids. And again, you have to remember that cyber doesn't carry by itself. Yeah. All right? You can do so much just using a cyber attack, but what really concerns us is a combined attack.
Well, what do we have to do, and what would it cost right now?
But okay, that's a good question. But I mean, I don't know about this, but does law enforcement get this? I mean,
well, law enforcement gets it, but they're really usually after the fact. It's really up to these private companies. About 90% of our infrastructure is privately owned in this country, and is up to those
federal law enforcement can't say anything about that.
Well, they can help investigate it. You have Department of Homeland Security may make recommendations, and there's certain regulations that go in, obviously, too, with this power grid. However, the responsibility for securing substations and transformers and those critical junctures within the system are really within the private hands. So it's really kind of onus on private industry to do this.
We got to leave it there. Thanks to all 3 of you. We appreciate it. From the U.S. and every corner of the globe, Money has